Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast. My name is Kelly, I'm your host, and today we're talking all about wedding budgets. Now, it's one thing to actually have a wedding budget. It's a completely other thing to actually stick to the wedding budget, and that's where a lot of couples go wrong. You may spend a lot of time creating your budget and then still find that you're going over budget. In fact, statistically, many couples in Ireland report back saying that they go over budget. I don't know the exact stat in mind, but it's like most couples go over budget. So today I'm going to walk you through six very practical steps to make sure that you stick to your budget. So if you're on a tight budget, it's completely possible. You can plan your wedding. I have no doubt about it. You can have the wedding of your dreams, but it can be a budget-friendly celebration. So why don't we get started? I'm going to walk you through these six things. If you are the note-taking type of person, then there's also going to be a written version of this episode on the Weddings Online website. So it's weddingsonline.ie/blog. And within the blog, there's a podcast section, and every episode has a written aspect to the episode. And I'm going to share some, episode links to previous podcast episodes that might help you to get some more detail about some of the different bits we're going to talk about. So why don't we get started with step number one, and that is to create wiggle room. Now, with any budgeting, whether it's for your wedding or for your groceries, whatever it is, I always recommend having some wiggle room. Wiggle room helps you to have some space in the budget for the unexpected costs that may crop up. It's no surprise that things come that you just haven't thought of. There are lots of hidden costs. There are lots of things you may not have considered. And it's really important that if you have wiggle room in your budget, that if something does crop up that you hadn't anticipated, it's not going to push you over budget. It's not going to mean that you can no longer have a particular service that you wanted to have. It just means that that wiggle room is going to help you for anything that's unforeseen. And you know what? What's the worst that can happen? You have wiggle room, you don't need it, and there's a little bit of extra money that you can either use to get something else for the wedding. You can either keep it and you can take it with you on your honeymoon or put it towards something for your home. Whatever it is, just having that wiggle room is going to be helpful no matter what. Now, you might be thinking, what kind of things could possibly crop up? So I mentioned before that there may be some hidden costs. Now, when I say hidden costs, I'm not saying that your supplier team will spring things on you that you must get that they didn't tell you about. It's more things like taxes and the types of things that are just normal, but you don't think about them. So I always encourage couples to read the fine print of their contracts. And if you don't understand something in your contract, there are a couple of things you can do. If you have a wedding planner, your contracts could be sent to your wedding planner who can review them and help you to understand different things. If you don't have a wedding planner, or even if you do, you could go straight to the supplier who's given you the contract and you can say, I think I understand this, but I just want to check that we're on the same page. I just want to make sure that I understand what different things could cost in different scenarios. No one's going to judge you for asking questions. Your wedding supplier team, they're there to help you. They want to make sure that you understand everything, and they do hundreds and hundreds of weddings every year. So if you go to them and say, I don't fully understand this, they'll do their best to make sure that you know what's going on. So we're definitely not talking about suppliers trying to hoodwink you. But we also spoke about some of the hidden surprise costs that you might not know about. And we actually have a whole podcast episode just about that. It is episode 81. And in that episode, we covered a list of expenses that couples tend to forget about. So those are the surprise costs in the sense that they're always going to be a thing, but you just don't think of them. So I'm going to give you a few examples of some of the things that we mentioned in episode 81. And if you want the full list of all the things that I put in there, have a listen to that episode. There is going to be a link to it in the notes for this episode as well. So these are some of the things that couples tend to forget about. Gifts for the wedding party. Who's going to pay for that? If it's not in the budget, you're paying for it out of your own personal money. which for many people is actually the same thing. They're paying for their own wedding, personal money and wedding money. It's all kind of fluid. Another thing is postage. You may be thinking about your wedding stationery, save the dates, invitations and everything, but have you thought about how you're actually posting those things and who's paying for that? Underwear and accessories. Sure, your wedding dress and veil and some of those things will be on your budget list, but have you considered like shapewear and, all of that kind of thing? Shoes, belts and that sort of thing. Hair and makeup trials. I know you've got a hairstylist and a makeup artist already put into your budget, but have you considered the cost of the trial, which we highly recommend that you have? And then the final thing for this small list of things is meals for your suppliers. They've got to eat too, and you may not consider putting them in your head count, but how are you going to pay for their food? So those are some of the things. They're just examples of some of the things that you may forget to put in your budget. And so when you're creating wiggle room, it's to help you so that if you come across something, you go, oh my gosh, I forgot that I've got like 4 suppliers who are going to be sitting at the wedding, but with no food. Now I've got to pay. Where does it come from? So firstly, the wiggle room will help you. And secondly, listening to episode 81 will help you to understand what the wiggle room could be used for. And you can start factoring those costs into the budget. Okay, step number 2. If you want to stick with your budget, you want to make sure that you don't go over budget, you have to make sure that you avoid inspiration overload. I always recommend that at the beginning stages of the wedding planning, couples go crazy when it comes to Pinterest and Instagram and TikTok and all the places that you might find the pretty things that help you to get inspiration. It's a great time in the wedding planning phase to kind of put some words to the kind of wedding that you're planning. So that's what I did. When I was planning my wedding, I had a little bit of a vision in my head and I wasn't able to articulate what I was thinking. And so I looked at Pinterest and I got some pictures and I sat down with my partner, my now husband, and I said, I want this wedding to have pink and gold. And if I just say pink and gold, there's so many shades of pink and there's so many shades of gold, and it can sound like a really tacky wedding, which was his first instinct when he heard pink and gold. But then I showed him the pictures and it was more like blush pink and champagne gold, and it was still like a classy take on, something pretty and something metallic mixed together. And so being able to have pictures will help you to communicate your vision to your supplier team. It'll help you, if you and your partner are deciding on themes and colors and different things together, having pictures and inspiration is actually very, very helpful. But it's not helpful when you've already come up with your budget, you've already booked suppliers, and then you're seeing all kinds of things online and you go, I need to have that. I'm seeing this. It's a new trend. I've got to have it. And if you don't have wiggle room in your budget for trends, then this is just going to take you astray. So once you've got your vision, once you've got the pictures, once you know which suppliers you want to book, step away from Pinterest, step away from Instagram and TikTok, and use it more from an educational perspective than getting more inspiration. So if you're following the Weddings Online Instagram and TikTok account, for example, you'll find some inspiration, but you're also going to find loads of wedding planning tips to help you make strategic decisions. Things like what we're sharing in this episode today, you're going to learn those types of things by following Weddings Online. But if you're following hundreds of wedding accounts, you're going to see a new veil trend. You're going to go, I need to get that veil. And you're going to see a new cake trend. You're like, I know we already have dessert, but we got to get that cake too. And then you're going to see this other entertainment thing. You're like, I know we have entertainers, but we need that as well. And then the next thing, you're going over budget. So if you're worried about your budget, step away from the inspiration once you've got your plans in place. Step number 3, to stick to your budget, it's always helpful if you track your budget on the go. So you need to find a system that works for you. It could be a spreadsheet, it could be, written notes, it could be an app. Whatever it is, use your system to help you track your budget as you go. So we'll go into more detail about this in the next step, but it's really helpful that you don't just track your budget at the beginning and then once you spent the money, but as you're being quoted and you're agreeing on different things, you actually update things as you go. It's going to help you to be in charge of what you're actually spending before you make agreements. If you're looking for a wedding planning budget tracker system, I want to highly recommend the Weddings Online planning app. It's free and it includes many things. One of the things is the budget tracker. So when you get quotes from someone, you can put the information in, you can see what you've spent, you can see what's left, and it's actually quite a game changer to help you stay on top of your budget. So I'll leave a link to the wedding planning app in the notes for this episode, because I highly recommend that you get your hands on it, because it's going to help you to plan your wedding with all the tools you need, budget tracker included. Step number 4, start with your estimated costs and update them often. Now, estimated costs are very helpful for couples who have no clue what things might cost. So we do an annual wedding survey here at Weddings Online where we ask hundreds of couples to give us an idea of what they spent on different things. And when we share that information, it's so that you can get an idea of the average that a couple spends on something. So if you're thinking, I don't even know what wedding flowers cost, the average will give you like a little bit of an idea. But then, as we always say to people, it does kind of depend on your priorities. Like if you're going big on flowers, then you will spend more than the average couple. But if you're not going big on flowers and maybe you're having a smaller wedding with fewer guests and fewer tables and therefore fewer centerpieces, you would probably be spending less. But the average cost gives you a bit of an idea of what you could expect to spend, and then you make your tweaks from there. But with step number 4, you can only start with your estimated costs. You actually need to then update the costs as you receive quotes from suppliers based on your specific wedding needs. So I recommend that you start with the estimated costs. Then as you get quotes, you update them in your budget tracker. And then when you've spent money, you then update it again. And then you'll have a better idea of what you're actually spending, what you have left. And it's really crucial to help you stay on track. Step number 5 is to itemize everything. And here's what I mean. When it comes to wedding stationery, in your budget, you could list wedding stationery, or what I recommend is you list all the individual items within wedding stationery. For example, save the dates, invitations, mass booklets, place cards, postage, and any other stationery thing. This way, you'll know you haven't left anything out. You'll know you've got all the costs included in one place, but it's all itemized, so you can check that everything you need to spend on stationery is included. So this will help you. When it comes to things like decor, if you itemize your list, you'll know if you're including decor and flowers or if you're having a separate flower budget. And you'll be able to see what you're spending where, and it's going to help you to keep track of everything that you're doing. It's going to make sure that you know you haven't left something out, and it also helps you to make sure that it's not going to be one of those surprise costs that we spoke about earlier, because you can list it in your itemized budget. And the final step, when it comes to sticking to your budget, you've got to ask for receipts. There's going to be so much going on. You're going to be making hundreds of decisions, and I'm telling you, you're going to lose track of something. If you have receipts, you can file them away, or if they get emailed to you, or if you update them in your app, whatever it is, you just have a record of what you were quoted, what you've spent, what's already been paid for, so you can manage your accounts. And if you have one wedding planning account and you see you've got X amount of money left, you may be like, why do we have so little? But you look at your receipts and you go, oh, it's because we've actually already paid for that service. Or you might go, oh, we've got so much money left. But then you look and you go, hold on, we've agreed to pay for something, but we haven't actually paid for it yet. That's why we have so much left. Keeping your receipts will help you to stay on track of what you've actually spent and what you actually have left. And then ultimately, you're not going to go over budget because you have a good record of what you still need to pay for. So let's recap those 6 steps. If you want to stick to your wedding budget, create that wiggle room, avoid inspiration overload, track your budget on the go. That's where the Weddings Online wedding planning app will really come in handy. Start with your estimated costs and then update them often. Itemize everything and then ask for receipts. I would love to hear how your wedding budgeting is going. And if you have any questions about staying within your budget or anything to do with wedding planning, get in touch. I would love to hear. You can send us a message on Instagram. We're at Weddings Online. You can comment on any of our posts, or you can DM us, and I will include your question and the answer in an upcoming episode. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.